Welcome to Season 2, Episode 6. Thanks for joining. I got MikeP on deck today. Yeah, so why don't you tell the folks, you started out as a participant, and you lived where?
Yeah, so I was in Atlanta for like 3 years before joining Numerai, and I was working for another startup doing data science full time there, and was a Numerai participant, and then ended up moving out here like in January.
And so your title, I guess, is what? What's your title now?
Anson, is my title software engineer? I think
it is on the contract, but data scientist,
software engineer, or something.
Check with the boss. I think that's a great strategy when you're just not sure what to call yourself. Mike, how would your parents describe what you do for a living?
So fun surprise, Elaine here is actually my mom.
Oh, good.
I got her on to answer this question for us.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a great idea. Are you
but I really didn't prep for this, so I have no idea. I'm going to tell you what I've heard. It doesn't mean I know what it means, and it doesn't mean it's right.
Nope.
I think there's some combination. Do what?
This is wonderful. We're going to actually hear from the parent for the first time. This is awesome.
Yeah, no idea what he does. I'm his mom, so I think he's really smart, right? But I would say that no matter what he did. Yeah, so I think it's some combination of game theory and data analytics to make predictions. And I don't really know what game theory is.
That's okay. So you're out at a dinner party in Buckhead, and you're talking to my friends who live in Buckhead, and they're like, oh, what does your son do for a living? Your answer is...
And I say that, and they don't know either, so it gets crickets,
perfect.
Right? There's
it is
complete
perfect.
Crickets, and then we start talking about what wine we're ordering for dinner. That's how life goes.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Use words that are super smart sounding, that you're not sure you understand, and you know for sure other people don't understand. That's a perfect strategy.
Kind of have an idea, but you can't explain it.
I should know, and I don't know. So it's all good. It's all good. Thank you so much for joining. You know, you have to come back now. You're now the Zoom marm.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that we behave, because all these people here are a bunch of rascals.
Well, life is less fun if you're constantly behaving.
Cool. Well, thanks again. And thank you for taking that question. We may have more for you. I'd stick around if I were you. MikeP isn't going to be very happy about that, but I digress.
She's very busy.
Very busy.
She's working full time and everything. So.
I think that's my cue to leave. That's fine.
Well, you're welcome to join and stay.
Nice to meet you guys.
Anytime
Maybe
you want.
Maybe he'll send me a copy of this.
You can definitely read the summary, and I promise you'll be in it.
I'll send you the video.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so your mom described what you do for a living, game theory, and some other statistics.
Yeah, she was I think she wasn't letting on as much as she knows. She knows it's on the stock market and the hedge fund and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
I could tell. She was being nice to you.
Yeah, no, my parents ask pretty good questions. Like I talk with my dad and mom a lot about what we do, and they read blog posts and ask pretty good questions. So I think they do a good job.
Well, that's great to keep up on you too, you know. Mike, what do you do for fun? I know you got locked down for a while, but what would you normally do on a weekend or something?
Yeah, I mean, my main go-tos are just like running and exercise. I like to play like random sports when I can. Like I get out and play tennis or golf or whatever's available.
Mike, when did you start participating in the tournament prior to being hired?
So it was actually only in April of 2019.
Okay.
So pretty recent participant. Yeah, I got sucked in pretty quick and came to a RazorCon soon after. Yeah,
I was going to say, because that was October, right? So you had like 6 months of development and evaluation prior to then meeting everybody. And then 2 months later, I think they hired you? Was it December or January?
January, yeah.
How did you find out about Numerai, though?
So, yeah, actually, one of my friends sent me an article, like I think it was like their Razor, an Unstoppable Marketplace blog post from like 2018, I think. That was kind of my first exposure to it, and I had always kept that in mind as like the only thing I really know about blockchain. Yeah, in 2019, I somehow found myself in the crypto rabbit hole, and I had to Google around a bit. I was like, what is that information marketplace thing I read about a while back? So that's when I like kind of came back to it and found Numerai specifically, and it just makes a lot of sense as like the intersection between data science and blockchain. There's actually like not that much of overlap between like crypto and data science, machine learning.
It's true.
So it's like just a natural place to go if you have interest in both of those things.
Many people believe that this tournament is challenging to the point that it becomes overwhelming. There's too much to handle. Like you've seen, I've responded to a lot of people on Twitter that have questions about getting started in the tournament and whatnot. And I really like hearing from new people because it helps to bring me back to where I was when I started out. But why do you think people give up because they feel that way? Like, why do you think they believe that it's overwhelming?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can see how the rules would be overwhelming, especially when our docs were like way longer. Anson cleaned up the docs a lot kind of recently that made them a lot less overwhelming, I think. But yeah, overall, it is ultimately is a tournament that you can put as much or as little effort into as you want. So
right.
Yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can just submit the example script and like while you're staking on it or whatever, letting it run. You can always come back to it and just improve it if you want to. So it doesn't feel like it should be overwhelming, as long as you understand that you don't actually have to be a super genius to be good at it.
Yeah, I mean, somehow I'm still around, so that's definitely true. What programming language do you use and why?
Yeah, I do use Python like a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
The why is like, I actually kind of like hate tools in computer science in a lot of ways. Like I really believe in ideas. That's my favorite part about all of like what computer science and data science is. And Python to me is like, okay, it might not be the fastest or the most powerful at some things, but there's just nothing that's better at letting you get from zero to something running, handling all that stuff, and letting you just focus on like iterating on ideas and testing them like very easily. So it's just like the fastest to focus on what you care about.
Did you study computer science?
So I actually went to Auburn for undergrad. And I studied computer science there. Yeah, then I got my master's in data science to actually start doing what I wanted to do.
Okay, that's cool. That's kind of what I was trying to figure out is like your path to that. What would you say are your top 3 tips for the tournament?
Yeah, so I think my first one is what I've realized is like reading, just like all kinds of things is really helpful for creativity. Like reading not only the forum, but like papers from other domains, just, Marco's book or whatever other books, Rocket Chat, just like I used to always just want to create everything myself and like not hear anyone else's ideas. 'Cause I got like more satisfaction out of that. But it turns out like if you're exposed to these other ideas, like you might not even implement them the same way, or it might not even be clear how you're using it, but it just like stirs up your mind a lot and might give you your own sort of eureka moment, and make you look at things from another perspective. So I think it's super important in this kind of work to read a lot of other kind of ideas from other people. So that's tip 1. Tip 2 is like take the time to set up compute. I think part of like the overwhelming part of the tournament is like you feel like it's a burden, like you have to remember to submit every week, and it kind of makes you not want to add more models, or it's kind of easy to give up and not feel like it's worth your time to iterate on your model, because then it means you might not even be submitting every week anyway. But if you just have something like running every week and you can count on it, it just kind of takes a lot of the stress off of it, and you can just work on it and improve it whenever you want, and it doesn't feel like as overwhelming. So especially if you have like 10 models or something, it's like way better to have some kind of automation set up.
What's your third one, my friend?
Third one is a little bit more technical. Like I think people should test their models in like a lot more different ways, and like measure a lot more different metrics. I feel like I hear people talking about, okay, this is my favorite kind of, like I will just train on, test on validation, and whichever one has the highest mean, that's the model I'm using. I think it's important to do, different types of cross validation, do walk forward to make sure there's no problems there, try different types of holdout, and don't just measure mean, like keep track of your Sharp, your mean, your drawdown, any kind of metrics you might care about. I think when you experiment in that way, like, don't know, you just learn so much more about your models, and you're not just getting one perspective of what's good. And you can learn a lot about like why your mean is low, because like there's this excessive drawdown, and it might, point you to another path of exploration. Like just measuring all these different things in different ways is like really the key to understanding your model and how to improve it. So I think people should like really invest more time into how they measure their models.
What's your number one feature request or improvement that you would like to see for the tournament?
Yeah, I kind of like was trying to think about if I was a participant for this one. And I was thinking like longer term, like stable leaderboard could add like a lot of value. Like if you think about like how other data science competitions, like you can almost use them on your resume, because they are like, everyone knows that if you're like number one on Kaggle or whatever, it's like very prestigious. So I think, yeah, if we had like some sort of badge system, or like, over the last 50 weeks, this person has helped the meta model the most, and they have some like gold badge by their name or something. I think you can start like adding value to participants, like outside of just what we're doing now. Like it's just a completely new way to add value for people, because it's like a career builder. So I think that'd be kind of a cool thing to add.
Mike, I hope you don't have 10 models, but how many models do you have running on the tournament now?
I just have 2 models.
So it's Master Key, and the other one was
Apprentice Key.
Apprentice Key, right. Okay, cool. Now you said in chat that your Master Key model is very similar to the neural net that I divulged last week.
Yeah, I think it like uses maybe like a similar library, and I mean it has like one more layer, a couple more. It has some other stuff on it, but it didn't come up with like some super deep neural net layer like I was expecting it to. Some neural net architecture, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, so two models. There's some Slido questions about that. We'll get to those soon. What advice would you give to someone who wants to become a data scientist, since you've done this path?
Yeah, I think you have to spend time learning to code. You just like really inhibited if you're not like very comfortable in Python or whatever toolkit you want to use. You'll waste a lot of time like not working on what you should be working on. So by learning to code, you actually save yourself a ton of time on data science. So that's the main thing.
Okay. Learn to code soon. And then what about like, do you believe in this project-based path, or do you believe in a more formal, rigorous curriculum?
I don't know. I think it kind of depends on who you are. Some people, if you do feel overwhelmed by just starting a project from scratch, like you should just know that about yourself and take some learning path. But like I do just like getting in and starting hacking stuff together and then fix it after I break it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I was definitely like have no idea how to code. Let me just try to, build a neural net from scratch kind of thing and fiddle with it for 6 months. That's how I learned best, but I think everybody's totally different.
If you could step into my shoes, Mike, what would you ask yourself that I didn't?
Yeah, I would have asked about my my models a little bit more.
Oh. So
I like.
Go ahead. Please tell me more.
We'll talk about them more on the Slido, I'm sure, but yeah. So I'll just explain basically what Master Key is, if that's cool.
Please do.
So a lot of it is kind of similar to stuff Boris talked about, where it's basically you just give a genetic algorithm like an objective function and let it do everything. So yeah, I wrote the genetic algorithm just for fun that I enjoy, and I gave it a bunch of different pre-processing steps, bunch of different algorithms, different transformations, different hyperparameters for all the algorithms, all these feature selection options, just as many options I could think of, and let that algorithm churn for like 2 weeks basically, and it basically spat out like
2 weeks.
Yeah, because you have to like train and test like 10,000 different versions of stuff for these genetic algorithms to pick good models. I'm sure there's much better ways to do it, but this is just a fun way for me.
More power to you, man.
So it came up with like, basically it dropped a few features at the beginning that it didn't like, ran a PCA on it and took some of the PCs of those took a few of those principal components, few minor, few major ones, and then it built it used basically your machine, your neural net model for the actual algorithm, with some different era boosting type behaviors. It handled errors a little bit differently, and it's just optimized for sharp. So it's just, after all this genetic algorithm, whichever combination of all these different things ends up with the best cross-validated sharp. So yeah, that's all it is.
Would you say that it was overfit?
Yeah, definitely the feature part and PCA part is the most prone to overfitting. And that's something that I didn't really understand, being not in a financial domain beforehand. Is that okay, so in the training, if let's say the charisma, I don't remember which ones they are, but if the charisma features never fail, then my algorithm is going to think that you should always just keep all the charisma features and drop everything else. But in real life, it's going to be the charisma ones that fail and everything else does well. So you kind of have to just think about the whole regime idea completely differently.
Yeah.
The way an AI sees it, from other domains. Yeah.
So you had a big write-up. You want to talk about that a little bit? And then we'll dive into the questions.
The medium write-up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So that was more it wasn't really for current participants that much. I mean, I'm glad you guys read it and enjoyed it, but I feel like it was stuff that you guys already knew and we talked about a lot. I kind of wrote it with the purpose of introducing people to Numerai and why I think meta model contribution makes data science tournaments a lot more interesting, and it's kind of a pitch to get new users in a way. Because I really do think that having that, it is actually totally different. We've always said it's different from every other data science tournament, and it is in a lot of ways, but I think the meta model contribution idea can, if we do it correctly, which we're still trying to improve, obviously, I think it can be super appealing to people who are kind of bored with other competitions. So that was the purpose of it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad everybody comes back. But office hours is to help people learn and improve. And so that's why I want to specifically talk about your write-up, because people always have questions, right? How can I participate? How can we move forward? So the tips and tricks and the discussion that happens here is geared to the same audience. We just happen to have a really, really smart and sticky audience that hangs out, and I'm really glad. But I know everybody here has questions, especially about the Corr plus MMC. So let's just do it. When Corr plus MMC?
I want to do it this quarter. I just got it approved with the team in the last day, basically. So we still have to announce it and make sure, we don't want to switch to it and people say, oh, I just wanted to do only MMC, not MMC and Corr. So we still have to be careful about anything with payouts. We have to be really careful about how long it takes to change it from the time we announce it.
We appreciate
I'm hoping it can be in the next couple months.
So soonish, yeah. I would like very much. I know we can all calculate it ourselves, but we like it when you do it for us. But if you could add a column to our performance and just show the delta between what we have earned and what we could have earned under that system, so we can better understand what that looks like.
Yeah. I think it would actually be really good to just go ahead and put it as a leaderboard metric, at least. Maybe I think it should be the main leaderboard metric instead of having a correlation and an MMC leaderboard separately. I think really the closest thing to what we like would be the addition of those.
GRB, one true leaderboard. Or no, I'm sorry, that was Slyfox said that. What do you mean by that, sir?
When we added MMC to the current leaderboard, I think internally we had this discussion of well, what should we sort it by? Should we sort it by Corr? Should we be sorting it by MMC? Should we have two leaderboards? I really like the idea of merging Corr and MMC together to have one true metric. So
Gotcha.
you know where people stand,
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that plays out. Maybe there's like 10 leaderboards, and you can pick where you rank depending on the metric. Because there's many ways to slice this onion. But ultimately, yeah, you're right. There's got to be one thing that like is the official rank. Because if we're gonna say that participation in the tournament is beneficial for job interviews, then it helps for you all to tell us what that score is, so we can chase it or whatever. Well, it seems like would we have to choose to be staked on both, or it seems like that would just be the default, right?
No, the plan is you can still pick just Corr if you want.
Oh, well, I don't see why you wouldn't. Well, I guess because my models happen to have, I noticed that my MMC during a burn is significantly lower relative to the Corr. And so, yeah, I would add a little bit to the burn. Sometimes it even flips positive. So I'm definitely going to stick on both because I have nothing really to lose. It's a net positive overall on the long run for my models.
Yeah, I think about half of the models overall would like not benefit from MMC. That's kind of how it works out.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll benefit like the top half of users basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sign me up, man. Kino, when is the last payment day for the reputation bonus? I believe that's September 30th. And can we extend it for another 12 months?
We're not extending it. September, yeah, it's definitely in September. Is it the 30th? I mean, I don't know. We can
That was
verify.
a guess. I think it's the 30th, but I'm not certain on that. Yeah, if I remember correctly, this all the reputation bonus was removed because it was exploitable. And then MMC came around because they wanted to more align our target with what they really need. And then it looked like, oh, well, if you only play MMC and you miss out on the great returns of correlation, because most people abandon MMC in the recent rounds. And now when you combine the two, yeah, it's a different game entirely. You don't have to play that game, it sounds like. I thought it was going to be default, so that's new to me. But then you can choose to do it. For me, I'm at the top of the board. Sorry, like, that. So when I look at MMC plus Corr, I'm like, yes, I'm going to boost my earnings by probably 1.5% per week, like on average across all my accounts. And I'm like, hell yeah, that's awesome. Like, that's going to boost my earnings. I'm super pumped about that. We'll see what that means on the burns, right? Because if it adds to my burns, then I'm really not going to like it. But that's the risk I take. So I see your point, Kino. There's going to be part of the audience that's not going to like the change. And
are we going to have Corr plus MMC before the leaderboard bonus ends?
Is that going? Yeah, it sounds like it will occur before the rep bonus.
Okay, good.
ends.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. Like, they're independent. I don't claim that MMC is supposed to like give you as much returns as reputation bonus does. Like, reputation bonus is like 1,000% a year or something like preposterous that we can't keep doing. So yeah,
right.
It's not supposed to be a direct one-to-one replacement. And I don't claim for it to be at all.
We're also going to bang up against that 200,000 cap soon, I think. And that we'll see. I mean, there's several things coming up that we need to watch. If we continue to post these really high Corr scores, then yeah, we're going to hit that ceiling really fast. And that introduces some other potential problems. But Anonymous asks, how could you give us a quick rundown on how to use the different metrics, sortino, max drawdown, to select models with good MMC potential? See, that last little bit is where I can't really help, because MMC is a moving target, but these other metrics are basically portfolio theory. So the max drawdown is very important because you have to climb out of the hole. If you draw down less than whatever benchmark you establish, you're inherently building alpha. You can have the same positive scores, but if you just draw down less once, you have earned alpha. Okay. So limiting your downside is really, really important on that. I said in Rocket Chat recently, I said that, yeah, we're talking about correlations, but correlations to us are actually returns. So if we're looking at returns, then we can think of our submissions as portfolios. And in fact, they are because it's equities. So we're building portfolios and submitting them and staking on portfolios. Why don't we look at portfolio metrics? So that was kind of the genesis of that code that I posted in the forum. Although it's caveat emptor because I've been really busy with some side projects and I haven't gone through and made sure that I have those coded correctly. So I'm hoping that the community can help me out and make sure that I've got those in there correctly. But really what you want to look at is compare your models per era validation performance to integration test. Download integration tests, validation predictions, put it through that notebook, save the outputs, and then put your model through it. And just do a side-by-side comparison. Like use a snipping tool and just literally look at the metrics. When you have a really good era, did you outperform integration test? Or were you slightly below? And then the very next era, what happened? Did you do it again? Like look at the sequence of events because that matters in compounding. 129 and 199 in validation are very difficult. GRB and I were talking about that in Data Science Channel. And I don't have a suggestion on how to avoid that. I can just tell you that you want to draw down less than integration test does. I think there are 3 or 4 eras that integration test is negative on in the validation set. Try to have 2 instead of 4. You know, have fewer drawdowns. You'll have a higher Sharpe ratio if you have the exact same positive, but slightly less drawdown. You may not have as good of positive correlation, but if you can limit the drawdown, you're going to have a performant model that has the capacity to handle more risk. And that's kind of the genesis of why I started talking about we should change our paradigm away from high average correlation to thinking much more long-term than that. Like, because we've had some stability in the tournament that we have not had in previous years. So we're soon going to be able to have a whole year of performance without ever changing anything. And that's remarkable. So we can look at it like a portfolio and we can look at our returns in that sense. And when we look at it in a relative sense, annualized Sharpe is a very reasonable measure to use. And that's why I'm leaning heavily on it for now. Richard wants us to consider the autocorrelation of the returns. I agree. Because we have some serious issues with that because we're making repeat predictions week to week that last a month. So try to keep your autocorrelation close to 0. That's something that I have not optimized directly. So when I'm iterating through an idea, if I run my predictions through that notebook and I notice that I have autocorrelation that's within a band of 0.1 from 0, I'm pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, we don't have enough validation data to really throw statistical tests at it because we only have 22 validation eras. So if they won't take my suggestions on risk reduction, then please give us more validation eras. Give us 30. Just give us a statistically significant sample, please. How did Mike realize that the model he used looked good, but it actually wasn't?
Yeah, like day one, I got here, like looked at like my own like test set basically, and it was just pretty low performing. So that's all. I will say, like, it's interesting. Like right now, it hasn't had a negative. Like it is built for Sharpe, so it performs like very poorly if you look at it from a maximizing mean perspective. But, like, there's only 2 models right now that haven't had a down week in the last like 20 something weeks. And Master Key is one of them. So it is like doing its job of not losing money ever, but it just doesn't make money either. So,
well, that's no, my friend, you're thinking about it wrong. The beauty of a model that may not post very high correlation scores, but doesn't draw down is that you can put a lot of Numerai behind it. Numeraire, sorry, sometimes word garble things, but yeah, you can stake on it very heavily because the capacity of the model is very high. Whereas if you have something that swings wildly, you should not stake nearly as much. So I'm not a fan of going for the fences anymore. And that's why I publicly said that I killed leverage, which its clone is almost about to pass my main. Like, why would you kill a top 20 model? Well, I'm definitely outing myself. I'm chasing sharp, and I canceled the withdrawal. I'm adding to it. I'm gonna add more to it too. Maybe I want a couple more weeks, but I feel pretty confident that that approach is the way to go. How uncorrelated is too uncorrelated? So there's this user Beck with B3 Beck with 0.18 meta model correlation. I saw that in Rocket Chat today, but so I'm just pointing out one that I recognize. But I have a feeling that when correlation is too low, the models are no good. I agree. I think that's true. But let's find out. I'm diverting because I can't answer that. So what do y'all have to answer?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it is definitely harder to have high correlation if you have lower correlated models. But like one of the coolest models right now is XYHYSS. I think he's one of Marcos's students actually.
Yes.
And he has like 30% correlation with the meta model, but also just like very high MMC, very high correlation over the last. He actually has no negative rounds. He's the other user that has no negative rounds over the last 20 rounds. And I think his actually goes back all the way to round 192. He's had no negative rounds. And he only has like 30% correlation with the meta model. So he's doing something really, really cool. So I think he shows that it is possible.
Yeah, I'm very curious what's going on there. They were almost at the top of the leaderboard, and then they just tanked like a rock out of the leaderboard. But it's a different model design. I'm really curious what's going on. I'm also curious why they haven't made more models, but never know. Busy student at Cornell, probably the case. So have I experimented with deeper nets with tons of features work? Early on, I did use Keras with GPU and all this other nonsense, and I just couldn't get performance that I liked. And I just realized that I was trying too hard, and it comes back to Occam's razor. I do believe that the simple explanation is the correct one, and that kind of drives my null, is that I have to be able to beat simple, and I have not been able to do that. Oh, they stopped submitting? Oh, Joe's got the last question. Any chance of a user test set with metrics displayed only once per week per model? And what I think you're getting at, if I can try to infer here, is like to get some peek at the backtest performance on the data that we don't have any visibility on. So how about it, team?
Feels like probably a no, but I'll let Richard say if he thinks otherwise.
It's a no.
I think it's pretty safe to say no.
Pretty safe to say no, yeah.
Yeah, no, the test set is like really important to us, keeping it clean and not letting people overfit to it. So yeah, it has to stay like as pure as possible.
Well, cool. That's what I got for you today, folks.